Welcome back to Light in the Battle. My name is Festina. I'm an autistic single mother who went through narcissistic abuse, and I'm now experiencing prolonged post-separation abuse and legal abuse with significant consequences on my child and on myself. I have figured out a lot of things about who I needed to become in order to best navigate court against a dysfunctional, disordered person. Season 2 describes that journey. And I've also figured out a few things in the process about how not to lose your mind completely as an autistic woman when life gets really, really hard. I am one of the extremely rare content creators that sits at the intersection between autism in women and narcissistic abuse with everything that entails. So PTSD recovery, legal abuse, coercive control, etc. The autistic brain needs special TLC, especially under severe stress. And that's what we're talking about in season 3 of this podcast. Because remaining functioning day to day while you're doing the long-term self-development work I talk about in season 2, the day-to-day needs to be talked about as well. Episode 35 was about preventing overload, creating a lifestyle where you don't need to regulate yourself out of fight or flight all the time because you don't get overwhelmed so often. So episode 35 is regulation as a preventative lifestyle. Episode 36 today is about what to do when you're already in the hole, when you've hit autistic burnout and the kids still need feeding, your lawyer still expects a response, and your boss still expects you to show up. I want to credit Orion Kelly, who works under the brand That Autistic Guy, for helping me understand autistic burnout when I was going through it. What follows in this episode is a lot of lived experience from yours truly and reflections for the autistic single mom going through too much for too long and now in autistic burnout. I'm going to offer you an off ramp right now. If just thinking about this is already too much for you today, I'm going to send you straight to my autistic burnout meditation. It's a bonus episode that I placed between episode 24 and 25 of this podcast. Maybe start there, listen to it as much as you need, and then come back here and listen to this episode in chunks. So the core question today is, what do you do when this isn't ordinary tiredness or temporary dysregulation anymore? Your capacity has actually collapsed. That's what we're talking about today. And the mantra, what I want to keep repeating and what I want to demonstrate and help you keep in mind is that we have to stop trying to force our previous level of functioning out of a nervous system that currently does not have that capacity. So we stop trying to be who we used to be, and we stop forcing the lifestyle that got us into this mess on a nervous system that is deeply burnt out. It's a very humbling dive when you go from high masking, seemingly low support needs, seemingly high functioning, with people looking up to you for all the amazing things you've done, for your amazing pattern recognition skills. And you go all the way down into the whole of ASD burnout. Autistic burnout is something very few people understand. So going from one extreme to the other is a very humbling dive. It's also, for me, it's been a very interesting experience too, where I learned to no longer see myself as a superhero, someone who can crush everything she undertakes, someone who teaches others, saves others, And then suddenly my body started demanding that I focus on myself because I barely had enough energy for that in the first place. And there was growth there for me as a person. I officially found the limit of what I can produce, what I can be for others and in the world. And I had to listen to that if I was going to come out. I personally went through the worst part of this about 8 months ago as I'm recording this. I am recovering, and I know that my life will never be the same because that shiny life is what got me there. I'm more humble, I'm more gentle with myself. I no longer try to expand energy on saving others so much. I'm focused on what will cost me the least energy for the maximum return. I'm focused on the physical and mental health of me and my kid, and I'm not looking much farther at this time. I created an autistic burnout meditation for anybody who's still listening to this and hasn't left in the first few minutes when I pointed out my autistic burnout meditation. This is something I created for myself, again, about 8 months ago, and it has helped me. It was what I needed. Then I made it public as a bonus episode. You'll find it between episode 24 and 25. It's called Autistic Burnout Meditation, and it's one of my best performing episodes. So that tells me that it is helping people. It might help you as a daily practice in parallel with this episode here, which covers burnout more from the perspective of understanding it, living with it, and slowly coming out of it. So I'm keeping this episode centered on autistic burnout, which is a collapse of your capacity, and then recovery. This is not going to be a general regulation episode. Autistic burnout is not ordinary exhaustion, and it's not neurotypical burnout. Neurotypical burnout, you can't get up in the morning, you can't function, you can't respond to emails, you can't feed yourself. All of these unpleasant things are happening for sure, but it's not an experience where all of the autistic traits are going to become magnified with an impact on your social relationships, on your sense of identity, on how you interact with the world, and all the items that we're going to discuss a bit later. And recovering, so it's autistic burnout is not the same as neurotypical burnout. When your capacity has collapsed, trying harder can actually dig the hole deeper. To recover, you're going to need to temporarily ask less of your nervous system. Temporary can mean months or years, and it is what it is. Whatever time it takes, it is what it is. And your life might very well never be the same after. And that's a good thing because you'll come out more attuned to your warning signs, to who you need to be, how you need to live your life for it to be sustainable long term and through massive amounts of stress. Because your co parent is not going to stop being dysfunctional. Your kids are not going to stop being on the spectrum, probably, if you're on the spectrum. The legal battle is not going to stop anytime soon. So you want to design my wish for you is you come out of autistic burnout with a new design for your life that allows you to sustain huge amounts of stress long term successfully. I shared in episode 18 that EMDR, which is a type of trauma therapy called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, it had helped clear some of my complex PTSD. And in the process, it's changed some parts of my personality because complex PTSD from childhood had very much shaped my personality as an adult. Well, I also find that the experience of autistic burnout And the interesting journey of adjusting everything in order to slowly come out of it is also going to alter my life forever. There's a before and an after. And that's a good thing because my attitude before was not sustainable. Let's start with the basics. What does autistic burnout look like for autistic women? Things you could previously do become difficult or impossible. At this time, I cannot send physical mail anymore. The thought of looking for an envelope and a stamp is too much for me. I can't go shopping for a new cute top and a new pair of cute shoes at this time. Too many bright lights, too many people, too much noise. So things I could do previously have become difficult or impossible. My executive functioning has dropped. So, for example, a woman in autistic burnout will open her laptop to pay 3 bills, but can't figure out which one to start with. So she just closes the laptop and pays none of them. That's one example of executive functioning having dropped significantly. Another example is when you know you need to leave the house at 8:30, but you can't work out the sequence between showering, getting dressed, eating breakfast, packing your bag, and somehow you're still in bed at 8:20. You're stuck. That's another example of executive functioning having dropped. A third example is when a mom reads a school email asking her to complete a simple form, and she's like, I need to do that, but she can't initiate the task. And so she'll remember it again 3 days later. Okay. And these have an impact on our lives. That's a huge impact of autistic burnout on our lives. Autistic burnout also involves sensory tolerance going down. I personally live with my loop earplugs. These were a trend on social media a few months ago, or for a long time actually. I ended up getting a pair. I live with them. I can't stand noise. It's never been pleasant for me, but with autistic burnout, it's become next level unbearable. Another thing that happens in autistic burnout is your social or verbal capacity can shrink. So it was never necessarily pleasant for us to be in large crowds and large groups back when we were masking and seemingly high functioning. But in autistic burnout, you just don't have an option. You end up declining invitation after invitation for months and months and months. And the people who love you will get it. And the others, well, you know what? You're cleaning up your social circle, I guess, with the people that won't understand that you need time. Another thing that happens in autistic burnout is the recovery after ordinary demands takes much longer. And also, your existing autistic traits may become much more pronounced. This is the key difference between neurotypical burnout and autistic burnout. Your existing autistic traits, the ones you've successfully masked for many, many years, they become obvious, much more pronounced, much more visible. So, for example, my processing delay for verbal input has become a lot longer. Where I used to be able to hold a conversation like a neurotypical person, I can tell that I now experience a few second delay between the person finishing their sentence and me being able to form a response. I have to process what they said and come up with a response. It's taking me a few seconds now. It used to be instantaneous. And those few seconds I have to spend looking away. I can't be looking at the person. I can't be making eye contact. That's new. And I guess that autistic trait was always there, but somehow things were high functioning or whatever before, and now it's very visible. Another thing that I found is much more pronounced with me is my alexithymia. Alexithymia is something I've talked about in several other episodes. Is the delay between when you should be feeling an emotion and when you do feel it, when you're able to name it. Like someone will do something and you'll have no response. And a day later, you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't fair. That wasn't right. I'm angry. That's alexithymia. So the research has not yet established that autistic burnout directly worsens alexithymia. There's no clean causal finding, but in my case, it has gotten worse. So normally something happens, that bothered me, and then a few minutes later, I'll be like, oh, I'm angry because of X. And in burnout, something happens. I don't feel anything about it. I'll carry on. I will feel irritable, tense. I'll want to withdraw. And then hours, if not a day or two later, I'll be like, oh, that was hurtful. Okay, so my alexithymia has gotten worse. This is something you will not find in neurotypical burnout. Neurotypicals don't suddenly require hours or days to feel the feels. One thing that I'm finding particularly hard is having my autistic traits become a lot more pronounced. And in the process, kind of having to come out to my safe people as autistic, something I've known for more than a decade, precisely at a time where I really don't need to be talking about that. I have so many other things to focus on than becoming my own advocate in a way and explaining to people who have known me pre burnout, high masking, and all that why I suddenly act this way and I pretty much look like a different person. This is not the time for me to be doing all that. And I almost feel like I should have come out as autistic earlier in life when I was still high functioning so that I could then collapse safely 10 years later with people already kind of knowing that that might happen and what it might look like. So you live, you learn, but the timing of all of that happening together is unfortunate. Now, why are you particularly vulnerable to this if you found this podcast? Well, there's a high chance that you're an autistic woman dealing with high conflict co-parenting, plus legal abuse, plus post-separation abuse, plus seeing your kids suffer greatly, plus, solo parenting those kids, plus you still have to work because lawyers aren't cheap, plus your autism. All of these are very significant demands that span multiple years. And there may never be a convenient period of time where life simply stops so you can recover. And autistic mothers can't necessarily remove the demands. The child still needs to eat, court deadlines still exist, you still have to show up to work, etc. So you're particularly vulnerable to autistic burnout if you share this reality with me and other listeners. There's a difference, just like there's a difference between neurotypical burnout and autistic burnout, there's also a difference between the constant dysregulation coming from having PTSD or CPTSD or just having an autistic brain. So, constant dysregulation and autistic burnout, they're not the same thing. In episode 35, I was talking about regulation and dysregulation, and this is more like, okay, I'm approaching my limit. I can see the yellow light and the warning signs. Let's back up away from the limit, protect my capacity. We talked about capacity like it's the battery on your phone and what you can do to keep it somewhat, above 10% as much as you can as a lifestyle, preventative lifestyle, so that you don't get overwhelmed so often. In episode 36 today, it's different. I've exceeded my capacity for too long. I'm not running on 1 or 2%. I'm at 0. I'm no longer the same person. I can't function. Not the same thing between constantly regulating your triggered nervous system versus being completely flat on your face and not functioning. Two different levels of exhaustion. and damage to the nervous system. So let's start exploring what we do about it. We're going to stop demanding, something I've mentioned earlier in the episode in the very beginning. We're going to stop demanding our old capacity and abilities from our current nervous system that's burnt out, because that's not going to work. Your old capacity and abilities and your old habits got you into this mess. So our nervous system that's currently burnt out should not be required to perform the way it used to. We're going to have to reinvent something that works sustainably. Comparing yourself to what you could manage 6 months ago doesn't create capacity, suddenly fix how you're feeling today. It's just an invalidation, which you're doing to yourself, of what you're experiencing as real, which is that you're simply not functioning at the moment. Regardless of how people around you still see you and what they still expect of you, regardless of how work still sees you, regardless of the fact that your kids' needs remain the same, you're still invalidating yourself when you compare yourself to what you could manage 6 months ago. Right now, you can't. So it bears repeating. It's a very humbling dive when you go from high masking, seemingly low support needs, seemingly high functioning, with people looking up to you for all the amazing things you've achieved, all the way down into the pit of autistic burnout. And it's a very interesting experience, too. I'm sorry for being the gratitude warrior here, but you learn to no longer see yourself as a superhero, someone who's helping others, crushing everything she undertakes, and your body demands that you focus on yourself because you barely have enough energy for that. This little segment bears repeating. So in the process of coming out of autistic burnout, you learn to completely revisit the demands on your nervous system that are fair compared to what you were able to demand of your nervous system before burnout. So 6 months before burnout, you could handle all your emails in under 24 hours and bathe your kids every day and feed them nutritious meals. And that's great. At the moment, however, in burnout, we're going to have to revisit what we can and cannot demand from our nervous system. We're going to try and move to what is a fair demand on the nervous system. So right now, you're going to need to stop demanding your old results, your old self-image from your current burnt out nervous system. It is what it is. Things are the way they are. You can whine and cry about it, or you can look for ways forward. And if you need a reminder of how crucial surrender is and what it can look like when your reality has turned to absolute shit, I'll refer you to episode 26, where we talk about surrender. What does it look like to start creating a new lifestyle that slowly but surely gets us out of autistic burnout? We learn to triage our lives. We sort demands into 4 buckets: must happen, can be simplified, can wait, can disappear entirely for now. 4 buckets: must happen, can be simplified, can wait, can disappear entirely for now. So must happen would be feeding your kids, showing up to a court hearing. You don't really have an option there. Can be simplified: meals. Can you do frozen meals, or can you get groceries delivered instead of shopping? What can you simplify? Next is the bucket of things that can wait. Folding laundry. Do you really need to be folding laundry? No. You put the clean laundry in a big bucket and the kids just go and find what they need. They're looking for their blue shirt. Well, check the bucket. It's probably in there. I don't need to be folding it. Replying to non-urgent messages. That can wait. Okay? And the 4th bucket we said is what can disappear entirely: social plans, Whoop, that can disappear entirely. Unnecessary errands or what you thought were obligations that are really not. Temporarily, while you're going through this journey of coming out of autistic burnout and creating a new lifestyle that will be sustainable, that can disappear entirely. You learn to live in the world of enough, of good enough for several months. This is temporary. You will come out of it. You'll come back out and you won't go back to what has brought you to this point. You'll find a healthy medium at some point, okay? Between high performing, high masking, seemingly low support needs, and currently being flat on your face, you'll find a healthy medium at some point, and it's okay if it takes months or even years. It's okay. It's fine. On the scale of a lifetime, it's fine. We want to stop trying to force our previous level of functioning out of a nervous system that currently does not have that capacity. Next is a section that's going to be a lot more detailed because it's been key for me. I can't stop talking about this, is radical demand reduction, a low demand lifestyle. This is the core of recovery. So hold on to your seats. And my imaginary character, Jessica, the one I used when talking about codependency and autism in episode 20, is going to come help us. We're working to reduce demands aggressively. Okay, so the principle is during autistic burnout, you don't use your remaining capacity, if any, to maintain standards that aren't currently essential. Jessica's job is to make her life temporarily easier, good enough. Remember, Jessica is going to live in the world of enough, of good enough for whatever period of time. So first, she's going to simplify anything to do with food. She stops expecting herself to cook from scratch and she rotates 5 easy meals: frozen pizza, soup, pasta, sandwiches, and ready meals. So feeding herself and the kids requires almost no planning. The second thing she's going to do to aggressively reduce demands, and that's something I did, is to create a default wardrobe. She decides that leggings and a black t-shirt and a cardigan is her burnt out uniform. So getting dressed requires 0 decisions every morning. You don't want the first thing that happens when you come out of bed to require 10 decisions. What am I wearing with what? Are these colors, do they go together? Too many prints. Like, no. You decide on a burnout uniform and that's what you're going to wear. Third thing that Jessica is going to do during autistic burnout, she's going to cancel optional social commitments. She skips the school parent drinks on Friday because she knows that 2 hours of masking, if she can, because I personally couldn't mask during autistic burnout. There was no masks to be found anywhere. I was completely unmasked. I was over it. That will cost her most of Saturday if she masks for 2 hours on Friday at a meeting with the school parents. But Saturday is when she needs to be fully present for her kids. So we're not going to do that. She's going to cancel optional social commitments. Jessica is also going to stop stacking demanding activities. If she's got a lawyer's appointment on Tuesday morning, she's deliberately going to schedule nothing that is socially or administratively demanding that same day. Okay? I personally would book maybe 3 demanding appointments a week, and that was going to be it. I wasn't going to do more than that because of all the recovery time that was needed afterwards. Jessica is also going to make household standards temporarily lower. She decides that clean underwear, clean dishes, and taking the trash out matter. Perfectly folded laundry and a spotless bathroom can wait. So she's lowered the standards in her household temporarily. Jessica is also going to automate recurring decisions. So she puts groceries, prescriptions, bills, household essentials on recurring orders or auto pay. Amazon, for example, does a great job at automating deliveries. You can register to have something delivered every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, because that's the way that your brain doesn't need to keep remembering anything. Put all of that on recurring orders or auto pay. So you're automating the recurring decisions. These should require zero brain power. She's also going to use repetition deliberately. So she's going to eat the same breakfast every day. She's going to walk the same route with her dog. She's going to shop from the same grocery list. And she'll follow roughly the same evening routine because predictability to an autistic brain costs her less processing power. She's going to protect periods of zero input after she's dropped the kids off at school or at grandma's, whatever. She's going to put her phone away, turn off unnecessary sound and stimuli, and give herself 30 minutes where nobody gets conversation, news, Facebook, or problem solving from her, unless it's genuinely necessary, of course. She wants to be protecting periods of zero input. This is very, very helpful to a burnt out autistic nervous system. Then there's asking for help, where we want to be extremely specific instead of vaguely needing support. So Jessica is not going to tell her sister that she's overwhelmed. She's going to ask, can you take the kids on Saturday from 2 to 6 so I can be completely alone? You want to make it easy for people to help you. You want to be specific with what you need, just keep it reasonable, but definitely learn. And if you've been a high achiever your whole life and you think you can do it all and manage it all, you're going to have to learn humility and learn to ask for help. And you want to do that in a very specific way. And the next thing she's going to do is to stop treating every incoming problem as an emergency. Like life is like a whack-a-mole type of game sometimes. Like it just keeps coming. Okay. Do you want to treat everything like it's an emergency and keep burning yourself out farther? Or do you want to create a little bit of space between you and all of these demands? So Jessica receives a stressful co-parenting email at 7 p.m., realizes there's no deadline requiring an immediate response, and she decides that tomorrow at 10 a.m. is when I deal with those. I even recommend, I mean, that's what I'm doing for me. I have a dedicated phone line and a dedicated email address for my co-parent, and I check those twice a week on my own terms. So there's no incoming nonsense from that part of my life ever. I decide when I go and check what's going on over there. Now, please keep in mind, let's keep it reasonable over here. Please use your judgment. Aggressively reducing demands doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. Your kids have to remain healthy. You have to remain healthy. So with that non-negotiable responsibility in mind, aggressively reducing demands means getting ruthless about distinguishing an actual responsibility. In my case, it's me and my kids' mental and physical health from a social standard, a habit, something you've always done. You've always done it this way. Well, maybe you don't have to keep doing it this way. An expectation from the outside. Well, my mom prefers it when I drop off the kids with whatever, a sandwich in their backpack. Well, you know what? Mom can maybe pull her weight and prepare the sandwiches for you for the next X number of months. Okay. So you use your judgment, please. These are really just suggestions that I'm covering in this episode. But basically, if you decide, for example, that in your household, clean underwear, the dishes being done, and the meals being average to high quality on most days are the only things that matter, You put all the rest in the can wait or can disappear entirely buckets temporarily. Because we're working again to stop forcing our previous level of functioning out of a nervous system that currently does not have that capacity. You will come out of autistic burnout a lot faster with a ruthless, low demand lifestyle. Okay. I don't want this episode to be too long, so the next point I was going to talk about escaping versus rest versus recovery. So I'm just going to point you to episode 8, rest versus escape. And I want you to think about what genuinely leaves you with more capacity afterwards. Do you need complete sensory deprivation for 20 minutes? Do you need a one-on-one coffee date with a safe person where you experience safe human connection, fully unmasked? Figure out what activities work for you that are genuinely going to leave you with more capacity afterwards. And then we start talking about rebuilding. Rebuilding is extremely gradual and it's not linear. Just like PTSD or CPTSD recovery, it's going to be a lifestyle. It's not going to be a linear recovery journey. When your capacity begins, when it starts returning, you don't want to get overconfident and immediately go back to the way you lived before, because that's what got you into this mess. The peak of my ASD burnout was 8 months ago, and I'm still recovering now. I'm still keeping the demands very low. I'm still relying on my safe people to help with my child. I'm still actively avoiding social events, etc. So I'm keeping that frame that's kept me above water at the peak of my autistic burnout. The frame hasn't changed. I've started recovering significantly within it, and I'm keeping it. I'm keeping that aggressively low demand lifestyle in place. I'm not ready to come out of that low demand lifestyle just yet. My plan is to slowly start making efforts around specific items. So, for example, I might start becoming more creative with the meals at some point. I might start showing up at social events, see how long it takes me to recover, kind of go from there. Very, very slowly, very, very gradually. And I'm giving myself all the time in the world because I now understand my limitations, I guess, and I'm not going back to feeling like the shadow of myself if I can help it. I'm definitely living a different lifestyle, but I don't feel like I'm a different person. I'm actually finally honoring my needs. They were always there. I always should have lived a low demand lifestyle. I always should have asked for help. I always should have lived unmasked around safe people. So I'm the same person. I just finally see what my needs are because I've had to figure it out. My body demanded it finally. And the people who love me, they're dealing with it. It's fine. So, what I want you to get out of this episode is that we want to learn enough about ourselves to build differently. Within the period of autistic burnout, we build a different lifestyle and we maintain that lifestyle afterwards. You'll reintroduce a few demands here and there for sure, but it certainly shouldn't be the lives that got you into the pit of autistic burnout. Again, I created an autistic burnout meditation that I shared for the world. It worked for me. It's clearly working for others. It's a bonus episode you will find between episodes 24 and 25 of this podcast. Remember that if you currently have almost no capacity, you don't need another educational episode. For now, you should go listen to something that requires absolutely nothing from you. I'm not going to ask you to breathe into your toes or feel the sunlight behind your ears. I demand nothing from you in that meditation, so use it as much as you need. It's been very helpful to me. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about triggers after narcissistic abuse, why certain behaviors still destabilize you. And that's where we'll talk about injustice wounds, also known as injustice trauma. Until we get to that point, thank you for being here with me today. Remember to connect with me on Facebook at Light in the Battle. Share this episode with a mom that you know who's in the pit of autistic burnout. It's more common than we know. We just never knew it had a name. And if you're in the thick of it, my usual reminder that I use in every episode at the end is going to apply more than ever. Your only job today is to stay standing until bedtime. You look no farther. You stay standing until bedtime, and that's good enough. And you'll do the same thing again tomorrow and the day after until all of this fog starts to lift. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks.